Hey everyone, tonight we're going to dive into the epic saga of our ancient cousins, the Neanderthals, the fierce warrior Tomoe Gozen, and the bold Oceanic pioneers who connected the world across vast seas. You step into a frozen wasteland, the wind howling like a bad karaoke night, your breath crystallizing in the air as you spot a shadowy figure, stocky, powerful, built like nature's own tank, hunched against the ice, scanning for prey. You probably won't survive this brutal ice age chill without some serious adaptations, but these guys, they thrived in it, turning blizzards into their personal gym sessions. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always cool to see who's chilling with us from midnight in Tokyo or breakfast in New York. Now, turn down the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soft background music, and let's get started tonight. You crunch through the snow, your feet sinking into the frozen crust, the cold biting at your skin like 1,000 tiny needles. It's 80,000 years ago in Ice Age Europe, and the world is a glittering, unforgiving expanse of glaciers and tundra. The air smells sharp, like pine mixed with the metallic tang of impending storm, and every breath you take fogs up your vision. But there, ahead, you spot them, Neanderthals, your misunderstood relatives, moving with a purposeful gait that screams survival expert. They're not the lumbering cavemen from old cartoons, no. These are the absolute units of the prehistoric world, bench pressing the Ice Age itself while you shiver just thinking about it. You approach cautiously, feeling the ground vibrate slightly under your boots as a distant mammoth trumpets in protest. The Neanderthals turn, their faces framed by fur hoods, eyes sharp and assessing. They're shorter than you expected, averaging around 5'4" to 5'6". But don't let that fool you. They're condensed powerhouses, like if a modern bodybuilder got shrunk in the wash, but kept all the muscle. Their frames are stocky, with broad shoulders that could shoulder check a cave bear and win. Huge rib cages, expanding like bellows as they breathe in the thin, icy air. You reach out, imagining touching their limbs, short and powerful, designed to conserve heat in this freezer of a landscape, where long, lanky arms like yours would leak warmth faster than a sieve holds water. One of them grunts softly, maybe a greeting, maybe a warning, and you notice their hands, massive, with thumbs so strong they could probably open a stubborn jar of primordial pickles without breaking a sweat. You chuckle to yourself, thinking how your own thumbs are mostly good for scrolling through endless feeds. Theirs were for crafting tools, grabbing prey, or hauling massive loads across rocky terrain. And that face, oh, the face. Prominent brow ridges arch, like natural visors against the glaring snow. Noses large and forward-facing, warming the frigid air before it hits their lungs. It's like evolution's HVAC system, built right in, and you can't help but envy it as your own nose starts to run from the cold. You squat down beside one, feeling the crunch of frost under your knees, and examine their build more closely. Their bones are thick, dense, overqualified for anything less than full contact mammoth wrestling. You picture their femurs short, robust, powering through mountains while carrying half a reindeer like it's no big deal. Their knees, shaped for constant bending and squatting, tell stories of days spent building fires, shaping stones, or elbow deep in carcasses. You wince at the thought, but hey, dinner doesn't hunt itself, right? and their arms terrifyingly thick upper bones, forearms even more so, perfect for wielding heavy tools or flexing on whatever passed for prehistoric social media. A light wind picks up, carrying the scent of smoke from their nearby camp, and you follow them back, your footsteps muffled in the snow. Their rib cages flare wide, giving space for lungs that gulp oxygen like industrial fans, fueling chases through glacial Europe. You imagine joining a hunt, your heart pounding as you stalk an elk in a snowstorm, relying on their enhanced vision sharper than yours, thanks to that large visual cortex. Historians still debate whether their eyesight was truly superhuman or just finely tuned for low-light blizzards, but either way, you'd be the one tripping over roots while they spot dinner from a mile away. You arrive at the cave entrance, the warmth from a small fire flickering invitingly, casting shadows that dance like ancient puppets on the walls. One Neanderthal pauses to adjust a fur wrap practical, not fashionable, but hey, in this era, staying alive is the ultimate glow-up. You settle in, feeling the rough stone against your back, and listen to the soft hum of their voices, perhaps planning the next hunt. It's a canonical moment, the discovery of Neanderthal fossils in Germany's Neander Valley in 1856, which sparked our understanding of these robust survivors who roamed from 400,000 to 40,000 years ago. But here's an odd detail. You notice one using a sharpened stick to pick at their teeth, remnants of a meal stuck there, and you realize their jaws were so powerful they could chew through frozen venison like it was bubblegum. No chins to speak of, just pure functionality, expressions hovering between ready for a fight and mildly confused by your modern fragility. You crack a joke in your mind. If Neanderthals had Instagram, their captions would be, "Just broke 3 ribs hunting worth it. Number Ice Age gains." It lightens the mood as you warm your hands by the fire, the crackle soothing like ASMR whispers. As the night deepens, the stars wheel overhead, pinpricks in the velvet sky, and you ponder their endurance. They weren't just surviving, they were optimized for it. Bodies tailored by evolution's harsh committee, bodybuilders for muscle, Arctic engineers for insulation, and that one guy who really loved big foreheads. You feel a pang of respect, bundled in your imaginary parka, while they stride out bare-chested in the sub-zero, grunting softly at the drama of it all. Another joke bubbles up. Modern humans complain about Wi-Fi signals. These folks dealt with woolly rhinos charging like faulty Roomba vacuums. You trail them on a short patrol, the snow squeaking underfoot, wind whispering secrets through the pines. Their skeletons show constant wear-healed fractures, joint damage, like they starred in a non-stop action flick. You imagine the bruises, the breaks, walking it off with moss wraps and sheer grit. It's resilient, almost heroic, and you can't help but feel a bit wimpy in comparison. Light-hearted thought, if Neanderthals had therapy, it'd be talk about your mammoth issues while lifting rocks. The group halts at a vantage point, overlooking a frozen river glinting in the moonlight, and you sense their quiet confidence. This is their world, punishing yet home, where every adaptation from thick bones to heat-conserving builds keeps them alive. You breathe in the crisp air, feeling connected across eons as the fire's glow fades behind you. You linger by the dying embers of the fire, the warmth seeping into your bones as the Neanderthals around you settle into a quiet rhythm, their shadows stretching long against the cave walls like ancient graffiti. The air inside is thick with the scent of charred wood and drying hides, a cozy contrast to the biting cold outside, and you can't help but wonder what's ticking away in those oversized skulls of theirs. Remember that feeling of connection across the eons? It deepens now as you lean in closer, imagining peering into one of their minds, brains bigger than yours, clocking in at around 1,500 cubic centimeters compared to our modern average of 1,350. Yeah, that's right. These so-called brutes were hauling around high-performance cranial hardware while we were still figuring out how to not trip over our own feet. You shift on the rough stone floor, the chill seeping up through your imagined fur padding, and picture their neural networks firing like a prehistoric supercomputer. A large chunk of that brain volume was dedicated to sensory processing and motor skills, especially vision and coordination, essential when your to-do list includes dodging cave bears in a blizzard or tracking elk across slippery ice without Google Maps to bail you out. You squint into the dim light, mimicking their enhanced eyesight, and chuckle softly. If Neanderthals had invented glasses, they'd probably be for us weak-eyed modern folks, not them. Historians still debate whether their visual cortex gave them true superhuman sight or just an edge in low-light hunting. But either way, you'd be the one fumbling in the dark while they spot a rabbit at 50 paces. One of them gestures toward a wall, where faint ochre marks hint at something more than random smudges, and you feel a tingle of excitement. This isn't just survival mode. It's culture bubbling up. Their prefrontal cortex might have been a tad smaller proportionally, but don't write them off as impulse-driven cavemen. Evidence shows planning, cooperation, and creativity that would make a modern artist jealous. You trace your finger along the imaginary lines, feeling the gritty texture of the rock, and recall how we once thought all Neanderthal art was cribbed from early Homo sapiens. Turns out, we were the latecomers to the cave party. Caves in Spain hold red ochre paintings over 64,000 years old, predating our arrival in Europe, a canonical discovery that flipped the script on who invented abstract expressionism first. The fire crackles softly, popping like distant fireworks, and you inhale the smoky aroma, letting it ground you in this moment. These brains weren't ballast. They fueled adaptations across Europe and Asia, from dry steppes to icy tundras, requiring cognitive flexibility that screams innovator, not thug. You imagine joining a brainstorming session, grunts turning into gestures, ideas flowing about using local flint or bone for tools, maybe even applying ochre like proto-makeup. Odd detail. Some Neanderthal sites have eagle talons and pierced shells, not for utility, but possibly as bling, like Ice Age swagger accessories. Yes, this claw necklace is real, you joke in your head. Caught the bird myself, no touching. It's a light-hearted reminder that they weren't all brawn. They had flair, perhaps even contouring cheekbones, long before TikTok tutorials. You stretch your legs, feeling the ache from your imaginary trek, and ponder their daily grind, navigating cliffs, crafting spears, all without scrolling for tips. Their motor skills were dialed up, coordination sharp enough to hurl a spear or shape flint, without slicing a finger off, skills that make your attempts at DIY look like toddler art. A soft hum echoes in the cave, maybe a lullaby or story, and you lean back, the stone cool against your shoulders, sensing the cultural depth. Burials with flowers, pollen traces, suggesting mourning rituals. They cared. They grieved. Didn't just ditch the dead behind a boulder. You picture a solemn gathering, the air heavy with the scent of wild blooms, a far cry from the brute stereotype. As the fire dims further, casting flickering lights that dance like fireflies on steroids. You delve deeper into their sophistication. Language? They had the hyoid bone for speech and related genes, so probably not just grunts, maybe full conversations about the best mammoth recipes, or why that one guy always hogs the fire. Light-hearted joke. If Neanderthals had podcasts, it'd be Surviving the Ice Age, Tips from Your Brainy Cousins, with episodes on why bigger brains mean better barbecues. You smile, the cave's echo amplifying your quiet laugh, and think about their art. Those mysterious stalagmite rings in French caves, built 176,000 years ago in total darkness. No practical use, just weird creativity. Were they summoning spirits or hosting underground raves? The debate rages on. You rub your eyes, the smoke making them water slightly, and connect it to modern echoes our own brains, owe a nod to theirs through interbreeding. But we'll get to that later. For now, in this cozy den, you appreciate the unexpected. These weren't failed prototypes, but parallel successes, brains buzzing with ideas that painted walls, buried kin, and maybe even gossiped under the stars. The wind howls outside, a sleepy whisper now, lulling you into reflection. Remember those thick bones from earlier? They supported not just muscle but minds that thrived in chaos, turning survival into something almost poetic. A Neanderthal nearby sharpens a tool. The rhythmic scrape, like ASMR, nails on a chalkboard but soothing in context. And you feel the weight of their intellect. Bigger brains came with costs faster, maturation, shorter lifespans maybe, but they packed bruises, breaks, and brilliance into every year. You imagine their thoughts, planning hunts, sharing stories, inventing ways to make ochre pop on skin. Unusual fact, they might have used red pigment on bodies, tools, faces, war paint, or prehistoric highlighter. Either way, it's a dash of vanity in a brutal world. The cave grows quieter, the group settling into rest, breaths sinking like a gentle wave. You ponder the blue whale comparison massive brain. No indoor plumbing, but Neanderthals used theirs for real feats, not just floating around. Joke number 3. If they had spreadsheets, it'd be for tracking mammoth migrations, not office drama. As embers glow faintly, scent of ash lingering, you feel their cultural pulsart, burials, tools, not stolen, but original. This sophistication, hidden in fossils, rewrites our family tree, making you grateful for the connection as shadows deepen. You huddle deeper into the cave's embrace, the faint glow of embers casting a warm, amber haze that flickers like a lazy heartbeat against the jagged walls, the scent of lingering smoke mingling with the earthy musk of damp stone and fur. Remember those thick bones and oversized brains from your earlier glimpses? They're not just for show. They're the toolkit for conquering a world where the cold doesn't just nip at your heels. It tries to swallow you whole. You probably won't last a week in this glacial grip without some evolutionary cheats. But these Neanderthals? They're the undisputed cold weather warriors. Bodies engineered like nature's snowplows, pushing through blizzards that would send you scrambling for a heated blanket and hot cocoa. You step out from the cave's mouth, the crunch of fresh snow under your boots echoing softly, a crisp sound that cuts through the still air like a whisper in a library. The wind picks up, carrying tiny ice crystals that sting your cheeks, and you pull your imaginary hood tighter, envying their compact builds, short and stocky, minimizing surface area to trap heat like a thermos in a freezer. Long limbs like yours radiate warmth too quickly. Theirs are stubby powerhouses, earning approving nods from penguins if they ever crossed paths. You imagine waddling alongside one, joking in your mind. If Neanderthals designed winter coats, they'd be self-heating, fur-lined miracles, not the puffy disasters we zip up today. Their noses dominate the scene as you study a nearby figure. Large nasal cavities warming frigid air before it hits the lungs, nature's built-in heater. Humidifying blasts that could freeze your nose hairs solid. You inhale deeply, feeling the sharp bite, and think how this adaptation turns every breath into a survival hack. Perhaps even resting a brick on that prominent schnoz for fun. Odd detail. Evidence suggests they might have had lighter skin for vitamin D synthesis in perpetual gloom, wringing sunshine from gray skies, like squeezing the last drop from a lemon, practical, if a bit ghostly in the firelight. You trail them on a trek across the tundra, your footsteps sinking into powdery drifts that sparkle under a pale sun, the horizon a blurred line of white and blue, where sky meets ice. Their barrel chests expand massively, lungs like bellows fueling non-stop labor climbing, hunting, hauling with oxygen efficiency that makes your gym sessions look like casual strolls. You pant a little, the thin air tugging at your chest, and appreciate how this wide ribcage isn't vanity. It's a prehistoric furnace, burning calories to chase mammoths without breaking a sweat. Lighthearted joke. If Neanderthals had fitness trackers, they'd hit 10,000 steps by breakfast, then laugh at our active lifestyle apps. The group pauses at a frozen stream, the ice cracking faintly like thin glass under pressure, and you kneel to touch the surface, feeling the numbing cold seep through your gloves. Their clothing catches your eye, stitched hides, processed and softened, not random wraps, but intentional winter wear, insulating against winds that howl like off-key wolves. You picture them sewing with bone needles, planning ahead like prehistoric tailors. No Reddit threads for tips, just raw ingenuity. They weren't freezing in optimism. They layered up, biodegradable and locally sourced, cruelty based from hunts that demanded respect for the prey. You join a mock hunt, heart racing, as you mimic their crouch behind a snowdrift, the powdery fluff soft against your knees, scent of distant pines teasing your nose. Their resilience shines, bodies thriving where others falter, short limbs conserving energy, massive noses pre-warming air, skin optimized for low light. Canonical event. The discovery of Neanderthal remains in Gibraltar's Gorham's Cave, dating back 28,000 years, shows they held out in southern refuges as climates shifted, a last stand against warming that reshaped their world. Historians still debate whether their lighter pigmentation was universal or varied by region, but it underscores their icy adaptations, turning gloom into an advantage. You chuckle softly, wind muffling the sound. Modern humans tan for fun. Neanderthals paled for survival, like reverse beach bums avoiding the sun's weak rays. Another joke. If they invented SPF, it'd be Mammoth Grease 1000, blocking UV while smelling like adventure, way better than our chemical sprays. As the sun dips lower, painting the snow in soft oranges and pinks, you feel the chill deepen, bones aching in sympathy. Their enormous lungs power through, barrel chests rising and falling steadily, a rhythm that syncs with your breath as you imagine running beside them. No heated floors or hoodies, just pure design. Compact shapes, hoarding heat, noses, as HVAC pros. You spot one adjusting a hide cloak, stitches neat and functional, and ponder the planning. Gathering materials, crafting tools, turning chaos into comfort. The wind whispers secrets through the drifts, carrying faint echoes of animal calls, and you sense their mastery, not barely surviving, but dominating the cold. Remember those brainy innovations? They fueled this too, adapting resources for shelters, fires crackling warmly back at camp. You trail back, feet numb but spirit warmed, the sky fading to twilight's hush. Unusual fact: some sites show they used birch tar for hafting tools, sticky and waterproof, like prehistoric glue sticks for spears, oddly advanced for cavemen. You near the cave again, the familiar smoke scent welcoming, embers glowing like sleepy eyes. Their bodies conquered harshest climates, from stocky frames to nasal heaters, thriving where you'd curl up and quit. Joke number 3, Neanderthals versus Nonker. Modern snow days, we cancel school. They probably high-five blizzards like old friends, grunting, bring it on. The group settles, and you do too. The stone floor less unforgiving now, pondering how these warriors turned ice into home. Shadows lengthen, the air still and heavy with frost, and you reflect on their legacy adaptations that echo in our DNA. But more on that later. For now, in this frozen tableau, you admire the engineering. Short limbs, big lungs, clever clothing. The wind dies to a murmur, like a fan on low, lulling you into quiet awe. You emerge from the cave's dim glow, the embers behind you fading like a forgotten campfire story, stepping into the crisp dawn light where the snow crunches underfoot with a satisfying snap, like nature's own bubble wrap popping in slow motion. Remember those cold weather adaptations from your tundra trek, the stocky builds and massive noses turning blizzards into brisk walks? Well, now you're about to see how Neanderthals didn't just endure the freeze, they styled it out, crafting fashion and fire that blended raw utility with a touch of ancient flair, turning survival into something almost cozy. The air carries a faint tang of pine and frost, sharp enough to wake you like a double espresso, as you join a group processing hides near a makeshift workstation, the ground dusted with fresh powder that sparkles under the weak sun. You kneel beside one, feeling the rough texture of a deer skin against your palms, still warm from the recent hunt, its scent earthy and metallic, like wet soil mixed with a hint of wild game. Neanderthals weren't draping furs like discarded couch covers, no. They got sophisticated, softening hides with tools and stitching them together using bone needles finer than you'd expect from cavemen. You imagine threading one yourself, the needle pricking through tough leather with a soft pop, creating outfits that kept them warm, dryish, and protected from winds that howl like a bad hairdryer on steroids. It's not high fashion week in the snow, but practical brilliance. Every seam a barrier against the cold, every layer biodegradable and sourced from the very beasts they wrestled. Light-hearted joke: if Neanderthals had a clothing line, it'd be called Ice Age Couture, where fur meets function, and loincloths are so last millennium. The group works methodically, hands moving with practiced ease, the rhythmic scrape of stone on hide echoing softly, like a gentle ASMR session for the soul. Evidence from sites like Vogelherd Cave in Germany shows pierced shells and beads, not strictly functional perhaps, accessories for a dash of symbolism or swagger. You picture one stringing an eagle talon necklace, the claw sharp and gleaming, dangling like prehistoric bling. Yes, this is real, you quip in your mind. Caught the bird mid-swoop, no filters needed. It's an odd detail. Some used ochre, that red pigment, on bodies and faces, maybe as decoration or social signals, turning cheekbones into canvases long before contouring kits hit the market. Historians still debate whether this was war paint, makeup, or some ritual vibe. but it hints at a flair beyond brute survival, like they paused mid-hunt to think, this red rock would pop on my brow ridge. You shift your weight, the cold seeping up from the ground like an unwelcome hug, and watch as attention turns to fire the ultimate multi-tool in their arsenal. They weren't hurling fireballs like video game wizards, but mastering sparks in ways that would impress any survival show host. You lean in, imagining striking flint against pyrite, the metallic clink followed by a shower of sparks that ignite dry moss with a soft whoosh, the flame blooming like a tiny sunrise in your hands. The scent of fresh smoke curls up, woody and reassuring, warming your face as the fire crackles to life, popping occasionally like distant applause. Archaeological hearths, like those at Kabara Cave in Israel, dating back 60,000 years. A canonical site showing layered ash and charred bones, prove they built centralized pits, maintaining flames for years in the same spots. Not random blazes, but intentional homes. The warmth spreads, thawing your fingers as you huddle closer, the flames dancing shadows on the hides like a prehistoric light show. Fire wasn't just for coziness. It cooked food, unlocking nutrients and reducing parasites, giving them more time for, well, inventing gossip or better tools. You poke at the embers with a stick, feeling the heat pulse, and think how heating flint made it easier to shape thermal engineering before anyone coined the term. Joke number 2. If Neanderthals had YouTube tutorials, it'd be how to start a fire without matches, or a lighter app, with millions of views from envious modern campers fumbling with wet matches. You glance around, the group now wrapping up their stitching, the finished cloaks draped over shoulders like capes from a forgotten era. These weren't minimalistic experiments. In Ice Age Europe, going out in just vibes meant freezing solid before saber-toothed regrets set in. Their outfits were clever. Hides from deer or mammoth, softened by chewing or scraping, stitched for insulation, perhaps even with winter and lighter versions for seasons. The air hums with quiet activity, a soft grunt here, a gesture there, as they test the fits, the fur soft against skin, blocking drafts that whistle through the trees like nosy neighbors. Fire also warded off predators, a makeshift force field glowing in the dark, casting intimidating shadows on cave walls, while meat roasted with a sizzle that makes your mouth water imaginarily. You inhale the hypothetical aroma of venison, juicy and charred, easier to chew post-cook, a culinary upgrade from raw toughness. Remember those powerful jaws from the ice encounters? Fire-softened meals, letting brains focus on creativity rather than endless gnawing. Unusual fact, some evidence suggests they used fire to produce birch pitch, a sticky tar for gluing tools, extracted by heating bark in pits like prehistoric hot glue guns. Odd, but genius for hafting spears. The sun climbs higher, melting the frost into tiny droplets that glisten on the hides like morning dew jewels, and you feel the blend of utility and style. Clothing not for show, but survival swagger. Fire not flaunted, but mastered quietly. They turned cold caves into livable dens, meat less chewy, tools sharper, all without committees or apps. Debate lingers on whether they discovered fire or inherited the skill, but they wielded it like pros. No s'mores, but plenty of savvy. You settle by the fire, the warmth soaking in like a hug from an old friend, the crackle lulling you as hides are folded neatly. Joke 3. Neanderthals' idea of a spa day? Soaking hides in streams and fire massages, way cheaper than our overpriced retreats, and with better views. The group disperses slightly, tasks done, the air lighter now, scented with success. Callbacks to brainy cousins. Those oversized craniums planned this. From ochre art to stitched seams, culture woven into every thread. As daylight strengthens, the snow gleams brighter, your breath visible in soft puffs, and you ponder their ingenuity fashion from necessity, fire as lifeline. The wind picks up gently, carrying whispers of pine as embers fade to a soft glow, inviting reflection on how they blended brute force with subtle art. You push away from the flickering fire's warmth, the embers hissing softly like a deflating balloon as you step out into the crisp midday air. The snow under your boots, compacting with a muffled crunch that echoes the rhythm of your quickening pulse. Remember those stitched hides and masterful flames from your crafting session, the ones turning caves into cozy dens? They're about to get a workout, because now you're diving headfirst into the raw power of Neanderthal life, wrestling megafauna and healing wounds that would sideline a modern athlete for months, embodying a resilience that makes you question if they were secretly auditioning for prehistoric action movies. The wind picks up a notch, carrying the distant rumble of a herd on the move, and you feel the ground tremble faintly, like the bass drop at a concert you didn't buy tickets for. You join a hunting party, your breath coming in visible puffs that swirl like tiny ghosts in the chill, the scent of damp earth and animal musk growing stronger as you approach a clearing where woolly rhinos graze, their massive forms like fuzzy tanks plowing through the frost. Neanderthals weren't just strong, they were punch a rhino in the face. Strong, muscle mass enormous in shoulders, arms, and legs, built for hurling spears, skinning beasts, or hauling carcasses that weigh more than your car back home. You crouch low, the powdery snow soft against your knees, feeling the tension coil in your imagined Neanderthal frame, stocky and reinforced like medieval architecture on steroids. Estimates suggest a male could be up to 50% stronger than a modern human of similar size, upper body power, possibly doubling ours, not dad strong, but accidentally ripped the cave door off its hinges strong. The hunt kicks off with a burst of energy, you charging alongside them, heart pounding like a drum solo as you close in on a rhino that's decided today is not the day to play nice. Their preferred style, up close and personal, jabbing, thrusting spears at point-blank range while dodging tusks that could skewer you like a kebab. You feel the adrenaline surge, the air whistling past as you thrust an imaginary spear, the impact jarring your arms with a bone-rattling thud. No distant throws for these folks. It was intimate, risky, the kind of dinner prep that involves staring death in the face and grunting, "Not today." Lighthearted joke. If Neanderthals had takeout apps, they'd rate mammoths 5 stars for flavor but 1 for delivery too feisty on arrival. You wrestle the beast down in your mind's eye, muscles straining against its bulk, the fur rough and matted under your grip, scent of sweat and fear mixing in the frigid breeze. Their bone structure supports this chaos-thick limbs from those early ice encounters, now flexing with power that defies physics, or at least makes you wonder if gravity slacked off back then. Grip strength absurd, thumbs larger, fingers broader, knuckles like built-in brass knuckles. Researchers think they could crush a modern hand without trying, perfect for clinging to a thrashing prey or opening that eternal pickle jar of evolution. You pause, catching your breath, the snow around you churned into a slushy mess that sticks to your boots like unwanted gum, and admire the resilience. Fossil records brim with healed injuries, broken arms, crushed ribs, damaged skulls, all badges of a life lived on the edge. One Neanderthal nearby, winces slightly, adjusting a limb that's clearly seen better days. And you recall Shanidar 1, that famous skeleton from Iraq's Shanidar, gave a canonical find in the 1952nd, where a male survived years with a crushed skull, leaving him partially blind, a withered arm from a break, and foot damage, basically a walking orthopedic ad. Yet he lived on, cared for by his group, proving they weren't solo survivors, but community players who made room at the fire for the injured. You imagine bandaging a wound with moss, the soft, spongy texture cool against skin, scent of herbs faint but soothing, walking off fractures like it's no big deal, odd detail. Their injuries mirror those of modern rodeo riders, fractured ribs from tackling 1-ton mammals, a prehistoric bull riding vibe without the 8-second buzzer or cheering crowds. The group regroups, breaths heavy in the cold air that bites at your lungs, and you feel the scars tell stories of daily battles. Joint wear from hauling, blunt trauma from falls or fights, all healed without hospitals or painkillers. Historians still debate whether their shorter lifespans stemmed from this brutal wear and tear or faster maturation. But either way, they packed lifetimes into fewer years, shrugging off what would floor us. You trace an imaginary scar on your arm, the skin tingling from the chill, and think how resilience wasn't just physical, it was social, with evidence of caregiving like for that arthritic elder at La Chapelle-aux-Saints in France. Another cared-for soul amid the Ice Age grind. You haul a mock carcass back to camp, the weight pulling at your shoulders like a bad gym day, snow squeaking under the drag, the metallic tang of blood faint but persistent. Their strength fueled this. Muscles for sieges, bones overqualified for takedowns, turning hunts into triumphs rather than tragedies. Joke number 2, Neanderthals' version of CrossFit: cross mammoth lift, throw, survive, repeat, no memberships required, just a side of danger. The sun filters through clouds, casting long shadows that dance like weary warriors, and you sense the emotional layer, not just brawn, but bonds, helping the wounded heal because in this world, everyone counts. As camp nears, the familiar smoke scent welcomes you, hides from earlier sessions draped nearby, warming by the fire that crackles invitingly. You settle, aches fading in the glow, pondering how scars weren't failures but proofs of life, resilient tanks who wrestled nature and won mostly. Remember those brainy plans? They orchestrated this too, from spear strategies to communal care, turning bruises into badges. Unusual fact: some fossils show dental wear from using teeth as tools, like third hands for gripping hides. Odd multitasking that makes your dentist cringe. The wind softens to a murmur, like a fan on low hum, lulling the group into rest, your pulse slowing as snow settles peacefully. Joke 3. If Neanderthals had motivational posters, it'd be scars, because oops happens now. Get back to hunting, with a rhino giving thumbs up. You lean back, the stone cool but familiar, feeling their unyielding spirit echo across time, strength, and scars, woven into every survival story. You wipe the sweat from your brow imaginary, sure, but that hunt left you winded even in your mind as you trudge back into the cave's welcoming dimness, the air cooler now, laced with the familiar tang of smoke and stone that clings to your clothes like a persistent cologne. Remember those scars and strengths from the megafauna takedowns? The ones turning every meal into a high-stakes wrestling match? They're about to come in handy again. But this time, it's not about brute force. It's the clever side of Neanderthal life kicking in, shaping tools from chunks of rock, and honoring the dead in ways that whisper of deeper rituals, uncovering ingenuity that makes you rethink who really invented problem solving. The cave floor crunches faintly under your boots with scattered flint flakes, sharp edges glinting in the firelight like discarded confetti from a prehistoric party, and you settle cross-legged among the group, ready to dive into the nitty-gritty of their toolkit. You pick up a rough lump of flint, its cool, glassy weight solid in your palm, the surface pitted like an ancient golf ball waiting for a swing. Neanderthals didn't have hardware stores or YouTube how-tos, but give them a stone and some quiet focus, and they'd craft a Swiss Army knife of the Ice Age scrapers for hides, points for spears, awls for piercing, all whipped up with a finesse that'd make a modern craftsman jealous. You mimic the motion, striking the core with a hammerstone, the sharp crack echoing off the walls like a gunshot in a library, flakes flying in a satisfying shower that dusts your knees with powdery debris. Their go-to technique? The Levallois method, a multi-step prep where you shape the core first for predictable flakes, not random banging like overexcited toddlers, but planned precision, analyzing angles and executing cuts that sometimes fool archaeologists into thinking early Homo sapiens made them. Light-hearted joke. If Neanderthals had patents, Levallois would be trademarked as flint flaking for dummies, because accidents are for mammoths. The air hums with activity, a soft grunt here, a gesture there, as tools take shape around you, the scent of fresh chipped stone mingling with the ever-present smoke like a weird, earthy perfume. These weren't just sharp rocks. They were engineered for everything butchering meat with a slicer's edge that parts flesh like butter, tanning hides by scraping away the gunk, even woodworking for shelters or hafts. You haft one yourself in imagination, gluing a blade to a wooden shaft with tree resin and sinew, the sticky warmth of the pitch on your fingers like prehistoric superglue, turning a simple flake into composite tech that's basically duct tape meets Stone Age. Sites vary by region too. Limestone here, flint there, some experimenting with bone or antler, showing innovation, not copycatting, adapting to whatever the tundra tossed their way. You test the edge on a scrap of hide, the clean cut whispering through the material, and feel the pride. Over time, tools refined, got deadlier, brains and practice evolving the kit without waiting for Darwin to explain it. You shift on the stone, your backside numb from the cold seeping up, and glance at the fire where charred bones crackle softly, remnants of last night's meal. But tools weren't the only ingenuity bubbling Let's Talk tombs, or rather, the quiet rituals that turn death into something meaningful. You join a somber gathering deeper in the cave, the air heavier now, scented with damp earth and faint pollen that tickles your nose like forgotten allergies. Multiple sites show intentional burials, shallow pits, bodies flexed or extended, sometimes with grave goods or flower traces, suggesting they placed blooms with the dead. You kneel by an imaginary grave, the soil loose and cool under your hands. As you pat it down, picturing a loved one lowered gently, not tossed aside like yesterday's scraps. Whether spiritual, symbolic, or just they liked plants, it screams care they mourned, honored, didn't ditch kin behind a boulder with a shrug. The fire's glow casts long shadows that dance like solemn puppets on the walls, and you ponder the evidence. Shanidar Cave again, that canonical spot from the 1000 950-second digs, where pollen clusters hint at flowers in burials, a discovery by Ralph Selecki that sparked debates on Neanderthal compassion. Was it deliberate decoration or wind-blown coincidence? Historians still debate whether these were true rituals or practical hygiene, but the intent feels real, a far cry from the brute myths we've spun. You sprinkle imaginary petals, their soft texture crumbling between fingers, scent faint and herbal, turning loss into legacy. Odd detail. Some burials include red ochre sprinkled on bodies, that same pigment from earlier fashion flares. Perhaps as a send-off or afterlife makeup, unusual vanity for the grave, like packing contour for eternity. You lean back, the cave's echo amplifying a soft sigh from the group. Breaths sinking in quiet reflection. These rituals weren't flashy, no pyramids or gold masks, but meaningful, with decorative objects like pierced shells or feathers tucked in. No obvious use, unless cosplay was a thing back then. Maybe ornaments, symbols, social signals. Either way, it's culture, not calories. You imagine the scene, a circle around the pit, grunts turning to murmurs, perhaps stories shared by firelight about the deceased's mammoth takedowns or tool-shaping prowess. Lighthearted joke number 2. If Neanderthals had eulogies, it'd be, he wrestled rhinos, healed from breaks, and always shared the best flint rest easy, buddy. No more Ice Age traffic jams. The afternoon light filters through the entrance in slanted beams, dust motes swirling like lazy fireflies, warming the chill just enough to thaw your thoughts. Tools and tombs weave together here, ingenuity in life, rituals in death, showing Neanderthals as thinkers, not thugs. Remember those brainy cousins? This is their output. Hafted spears for hunts, burials for bonds, all without written manuals. You sharpen one last flake, the rhythmic tap-tap like a heartbeat in stone, and feel the continuity scars from battles healed by community, tools evolving like family heirlooms passed down. As the group disperses slightly, hides from fire sessions draped nearby, you ponder the depth. Language genes suggest they shared these moments meaningfully. Maybe poetry about meat, but profound nonetheless. Joke 3. Neanderthals' version of group therapy. Tool-making circles and burial chats. Way cheaper than ours, with better snacks if you count roasted venison. The wind outside whistles softly, like a fan on standby, carrying pine whispers as the cave settles into a hush. Unusual echoes linger stalagmite rings from Bruniquel Cave in France, built deep underground 176,000 years ago. No light, no use, just enigmatic art or ritual, odd as a midnight fridge raid, but twice as mysterious. You stretch, joints popping like the fire's embers, the air still heavy with Earth's quiet secrets. These rituals and tools paint a fuller picture, ingenious survivors who honored life and death with equal craft. Callbacks to fashion. Those ochre-dusted faces now in graves, blending style with solemnity. The sun dips, shadows lengthening like tired limbs, inviting deeper reflection on their world, where every flake and flower told a story. You rise from the cave floor, brushing flint dust from your hands, the sharp scent of chipped stone lingering on your fingertips like a faint, earthy cologne that reminds you of those tools and tombs from moments ago, the ones turning rocks into lifelines and graves into quiet tributes. But now, as the afternoon sun slants lower, painting the entrance in golden hues that filter through like lazy spotlights. You're about to cross paths with some new arrivals on this icy stage. Early Homo sapiens, trickling into Europe and Asia around 60,000 years ago, turning what could have been a family feud into something far more intimate. The air outside carries a fresh chill, mixed with the distant murmur of a thawing stream trickling like a hesitant whisper, and you step out, feeling the shift in the wind, as if the world itself is holding its breath for this prehistoric meet-cute. You wander the tundra's edge, boots sinking into softening snow that squelches softly underfoot, the crunch giving way to a mushy give that mirrors the blending of worlds ahead. Neanderthals, your stocky hosts, with those brainy craniums and scar-riddled resilience, spot the newcomers' taller, lankier figures with chins that actually exist and cheekbones sharp enough to cut through the fog. It's not a clash of clubs or territorial grunts. Instead, you mingle, drawn by curiosity or necessity, the air buzzing with unspoken tension, like a blind date set up by evolution itself. You approach one such gathering, the scent of mixed campfires, Neanderthals' smoky venison, blending with sapiens' herbal roasts, creating a weird fusion cuisine aroma that tickles your nose. Was it love at first sight, a survival strategy, or just the gene pool feeling a bit shallow? Scientists still puzzle over the vibes, but DNA doesn't lie. Most non-African descendants today carry 1 to 4% Neanderthal genes, a legacy written in your very cells, like a family heirloom you didn't know you inherited. You squat by a shared fire, the flames crackling with pops that sound like tiny fireworks celebrating this union, warmth seeping into your bones as sparks dance upward into the twilight sky dotted with emerging stars. Genetic evidence shows interbreeding happened multiple times over thousands of years in scattered spots, not a one-off cave party gone wild. You imagine the scenes: a Neanderthal male and sapiens female swapping stories under fur blankets, the air heavy with the musk of hides and unspoken futures, perhaps bonding over shared hunts or those fashion-forward, stitched cloaks from earlier. Light-hearted joke: if this was a rom-com, it'd be titled Ice Age Sparks. When brow ridges meet high cheekbones, complete with awkward grunts and mammoth-sized misunderstandings. No swiping right, just surviving right. The group shares a meal, you tearing into a strip of venison that's tough but flavorful, juices dripping down your chin in the fire's glow, the chew reminding you of those powerful Neanderthal jaws optimized for frozen feasts. Encounters weren't always consensual. Historians still debate whether some were forced amid migrations and competitions. A darker side to this mingling that leaves a somber note in the archaeological record. But the results? Tangible fingerprints in your immune system, skin tone, maybe even that aversion to cilantro lurking in your taste buds. You feel a tingle, as if tracing your own ancestry report mid-bite, realizing a very, very great-grandparent had an Ice Age fling that echoed through millennia. Canonical event: the sequencing of the Neanderthal genome in 2010 by Svante Pääbo's team at the Max Planck Institute, a breakthrough that confirmed this interbreeding and earned a Nobel nod, flipping our self-centered human story on its head. You lean back against a boulder, the rough stone cool through your furs, watching shadows play across faces, Neanderthal's prominent brows furrowed in what might be confusion or charm, sapiens' expressions more animated, perhaps chatting about better spears or that odd ochre makeup from the tombs. This wasn't a blended superspecies emerging. Neanderthals faded, but parts persisted in us, like genetic ghosts, whispering survival tips. You ponder the directionality, more Neanderthal males with sapiens, females, maybe due to group dynamics, or those charismatic travel tales from migrating humans. Odd detail. Some interbreeding evidence comes from a single toe bone found in Siberia's Denisova cave, belonging to a girl with a Neanderthal mom and Denisovan dad. Talk about a mixed family tree. Like a prehistoric soap opera, with plot twists involving extinct relatives we barely knew existed. The fire dims to glowing coals, hissing softly like a sleepy sigh. The night air crisp with pine and frost that nips at your ears, urging you to pull your hood tighter. You mingle further, gestures turning to touches, the intimacy building in the hush, where grunts evolve into shared laughs. Or at least, that's how you romanticize it. The wind carrying faint echoes of animal calls, like background music, to this evolutionary tango. Remember those strength and scars from the hunts? They might have impressed sapiens' counterparts, swapping wound stories like badges of honor, turning rivalry into respect, or something steamier. Joke number 2. Neanderthals probably had the ultimate pickup line. Hey, want to share my enhanced immune genes? I've got cold resistance built in. No subscription needed. It's a light nod to how their DNA bolstered ours against pathogens. A gift that helped sapiens thrive in new lands. You stretch your legs, joints popping faintly in the quiet, the stars wheeling overhead like a cosmic clock ticking through generations. This mingling left marks beyond bones, traits like red hair tendencies or altitude adaptations, perhaps even your brooding winter moods tied to those ancient alleles. African populations skipped this mix, but picked up other archaic vibes, making the human tree less a straight line and more a tangled shrub of flings and fusions. You feel connected, bundled in the chill, as if every sneeze or sunburn echoes those long-ago encounters. Debate rages on whether this was mostly peaceful exchanges or laced with conflict, but the legacy lingers, blurring lines between us and them in ways that make family reunions seem tame. The coals fade to a soft red pulse, the group's breaths sinking in the dark, scented with embers and earth, lulling you into reflection. These connections weren't flukes. They shaped us, intimate legacies traced in blood and bone, turning cousins into kin across eons. You close your eyes briefly, the wind a gentle hum, like a fan on low, carrying dreams of shared fires and whispered genes. Joke 3. If ancestry kits existed back then, the results would read 99% human, 1% Neanderthal. Congrats, you're part caveman. Blame the big nose on Uncle Grunt. The night deepens, stars sharpening in the velvet sky, inviting thoughts of what this blending meant for vanishing acts ahead. You stir from the fading warmth of the campfire, the coals, now a dull red whisper against the cave's cool stone, their smoky scent blending with the crisp night air that sneaks in like an uninvited guest, carrying hints of pine and distant snow. Those intimate encounters by shared fires, Neanderthals and sapiens, swapping more than just hunting tips, are still buzzing in your mind, a prehistoric soap opera that left traces in your very DNA. Now, as you wrap your imaginary furs tighter, feeling the coarse texture against your skin like a hug from a scratchy blanket, you're about to unravel how those ancient hookups gifted you quirks, strengths, and maybe that weird cilantro hatred that makes potlucks awkward. The stars overhead twinkle like nosy neighbors, peeking through the dark, and you step out into the frost, boots crunching softly on the icy crust, ready to feel the Neanderthal legacy pulsing in your modern bones. You stand on a low ridge, the wind whistling past your ears with a sharp, playful nip, the tundra stretching out like a frozen canvas, painted in moonlight silvers and blues. Your breath clouds in front of you, swirling like tiny spirits, and you imagine checking an ancestry report. 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA for most non-African folks, a genetic souvenir from those Ice Age date nights. You pat your face, wondering if that slightly wider nose or stubborn sunburn tendency is a nod to your ancient cousins, their adaptations woven into your skin like invisible tattoos. The science backs it up. Genome sequencing, like that 2010 breakthrough from the Neanderthal Genome Project, confirmed these gifts: immune system boosts, skin tone tweaks, even pain sensitivity quirks etched into us from crossing 60,000 years ago. You feel a tingle, like your cells are whispering secrets, connecting you to those fur-clad romantics under long-gone stars. You crouch by a frozen stream, the ice glinting like polished glass, its faint cracks echoing in the quiet like a soft tap on a window. Those Neanderthal genes aren't just trivia, they're functional. You picture your immune system, beefed up by their alleles, fending off ancient pathogens like a bouncer at a prehistoric club, a gift that helped sapiens conquer new lands. But it's not all heroics. Some variants linked to type 2 diabetes, depression, or that nicotine itch that makes quitting feel like climbing Everest. You chuckle softly, the sound muffled by the snow. If Neanderthals had warning labels, they'd read, "May cause epic survival skills." Also, random snack cravings at 2 a.m. Light-hearted joke. Your winter grumpiness might be Neanderthal firmware, hardwired for brooding in the cold. Sorry, modern therapists. Evolution beat you to the diagnosis. The group nearby huddles, sharing a roasted bone, the marrow's rich, fatty scent wafting over, making your stomach growl despite the chill. You join them, tearing into an imaginary bite, the texture chewy and warm, a reminder of those powerful jaws from earlier hunts. Odd detail. Some Neanderthal DNA affects sleep patterns, maybe why you're a night owl. Doom, scrolling instead of snoozing, a nod to ancestors who stayed alert for saber-toothed prowlers. Historians still debate whether these genetic hand-me-downs were a net win or a mixed bag, but they undeniably shaped us, from your ability to process fats to that odd twinge when you stub your toe, like your nerves are channeling ancient battle scars. You lean against a boulder, its rough surface grounding you, the cold seeping through your furs like a stern reminder of the Ice Age's grip. African populations, whose ancestors skipped the Neanderthal mingle, carry traces of other archaic humans, like Denisovans, making the human family tree less a neat chart and more a tangled shrub of flings and fusions. You trace an imaginary lineage in the air, fingers stiff in the frost, picturing a web of connections. Neanderthal resilience, sapiens adaptability, Denisovan mysteries, all swirling in your blood. Canonical event: the 2018 discovery of a hybrid fossil in Denisova Cave. A girl with a Neanderthal mom and Denisovan dad cemented this chaotic family reunion, proving our ancestors were less picky daters than a reality show cast. The wind softens, a gentle hum like a fan on low, carrying the faint rustle of pines, and you feel the weight of this legacy, not just in bones, but in quirks, like your hair's texture, or that moody winter vibe that hits like clockwork. Remember those strength and scars from the rhino hunts? Those same genes might fuel your gym gains, or that stubborn streak when you refuse to quit. You grin, imagining a Neanderthal ancestor nodding approvingly at your deadlift form, their thick-boned frame, a blueprint for endurance. Joke number 2. If Neanderthals had DNA kits, they'd probably brag, 100% Ice Age survivor, bet you can't handle my cold resistance or my mammoth barbecue skills. You shuffle back toward the cave, the snow squeaking underfoot, the air now heavy with the scent of damp earth and fading fire. The group's murmurs blend with the night's quiet, breaths visible like tiny clouds, sinking in a rhythm that feels ancient yet personal. These genetic gifts tie you to them, every sneeze dodged, every sunburn endured, a nod to those cave-side connections. Unusual fact: Neanderthal DNA might influence your response to medications, like why some painkillers hit you harder or not at all. Imagine them grunting, "Take 2 moss wraps and call me in the morning," as ancient pharmacology. The stars sharpen, a cosmic map above, and you ponder the intimacy of it all, not just genes, but shared fires, shared fights, shared nights that blurred species lines. Debate lingers on how much these traits sway modern health boon or burden. But the echo is clear. You're part Neanderthal, no offense, just science. You settle by the cave's entrance, the stone cool but familiar, the ember's faint glow lulling you like a sleepy campfire story. Joke 3. Your Neanderthal genes might explain why you love a good steak, but hate cardio. Sorry, gym bros, it's in the DNA, not the discipline. The night deepens, the wind a soft whisper, carrying frost and memory, and you feel their presence in you, resilience, quirks, maybe even that weird love for smoky flavors. Callbacks to interbreeding. Those encounters weren't just flings, they were bridges, linking then to now, their strength pulsing in your veins, as the cave's hush invites dreams of vanishing cousins and their lasting gifts. You ease away from the cave's mouth, the embers' faint glow now just a whisper of warmth, their smoky scent fading into the crisp night air that bites at your cheeks like a playful puppy with 2 sharp teeth. Those genetic gifts, Neanderthal quirks pulsing in your veins, still hum in your thoughts, tying you to ancestors who swapped more than campfire stories with sapiens. Now, though, you're standing on the edge of their twilight, around 40,000 years ago, as the Neanderthal's story fades like a song you can't quite remember the words to, leaving you to ponder their quiet exit from history's stage. The snow under your boots squeaks softly, a high-pitched crunch that echoes in the stillness. The tundra, stretching out like a frozen quilt under a sky pricked with stars, sharp as ice picks. You wander a rocky outcrop, the wind carrying a faint tang of thawing earth and distant pines, your breath puffing out in clouds that swirl like ghostly dancers in the moonlight. The Neanderthals are thinning out, their fires fewer, their caves emptier. No dramatic crash like a meteor strike, just a slow, silent fade, like a candle flickering out in a forgotten corner. You feel the weight of their absence, your furs heavy with frost, as you trace their final steps in places like southern Iberia, where they clung on in refuges like Gibraltar's caves. Canonical event: excavations at Gorham's Cave, revealing artifacts dated to 28,000 years ago, mark their last known holdouts, a stubborn stand against a warming world that reshaped their hunting grounds. You crouch by a deserted hearth, the cold stone rough under your palms, ash crumbling like old memories, its faint, smoky scent barely clinging to the air. One theory points to climate change, warming temperatures, shifting ecosystems, large game like mammoths growing scarce, turning their icy playground into an existential crisis. You imagine their frustration, those stocky frames from Ice Age encounters now chasing skittish deer instead of megafauna, the tundra blooming into forests that felt alien. Another theory whispers of competition Homo sapiens, arriving with long-range weapons, varied diets, and a knack for outbreeding everyone, like they'd cracked the code to a prehistoric baby boom. You picture sapiens camps bustling, their numbers swelling, while Neanderthal groups, smaller and more isolated, struggled with genetic diversity, like playing survival poker with a bad hand. The wind picks up, a low moan through the rocks like a fan on slow, and you pull your hood tighter, feeling the chill seep into your bones like a warning. There's no evidence of a violent wipeout, no mass graves or battle scars, suggesting sapiens stormed in with clubs swinging. Instead, you envision coexistence, maybe awkward campfire chats from those interbreeding days, sharing tools or ochre tips before Neanderthals slowly blended out, absorbed into sapiens' gene pool. Historians still debate whether climate or competition was the bigger blow, but the archaeological record in places like Zafaria Cave in Spain shows a gradual petering out, no new tools, no new burials, just stillness, like a party where everyone left without saying goodbye. You kick at the snow, uncovering a stray flint flake, its edge glinting faintly, a relic of those clever toolkits from earlier. Odd detail. Some late Neanderthal sites show hybrid tools, blending their Levallois techniques with sapiens' blade styles, like a cultural remix before the music stopped proof they weren't just fading, but adapting. Even at the end, you hold the flake, its weight light but heavy with story, the cold numbing your fingers as you imagine their final hunts, smaller groups, fewer fires, the air less smoky, more silent. Light-hearted joke. If Neanderthals had exit interviews, they'd grumble, climate got weird, sapiens got pushy, and the mammoths were total drama queens, 5 stars for effort, 0 for timing. You shuffle toward a vantage point. The horizon, a soft blur of snow and shadow. The stars above wheeling, like a cosmic clock, counting down their days. They thrived for nearly 300,000 years, surviving ice ages, predators, and each other. Those strength and scars from rhino hunts a testament to their grit. Yet, around 40,000 years ago, the curtain fell, not with a bang, but a whisper. You picture their last refuges, caves tucked into cliffs, fires burning low. The scent of charred bone fainter now, replaced by the damp earth of a warming world. No monuments, no scrolls, just DNA lingering in you, a quiet mark of their endurance. The group you imagine nearby is small, huddled against the cold, their breaths sinking in the dark, furs from those fashion sessions now patched and worn. You join them, sitting on a frost-crusted rock, its chill biting through your layers, and feel the loss, not failure, but a chapter closing. They weren't erased. They melted into us, their genes shaping your immune tweaks or moody winters from those genetic gifts. Joke number 2. Neanderthals didn't go extinct. They just RSVP'd to our DNA party and never left to check your ancestry. You're probably invited too. The night deepens, the air heavy with frost and silence. The stars a map they once read better than anyone. Unusual fact. Some caves show traces of red ochre used in late burials, like a final artistic flourish, as if they painted their goodbyes with the same pigment that once adorned faces or tools, a poignant, colorful farewell. You trace an imaginary line in the snow, the cold stinging your fingertips, and reflect on their legacy, not in stone, but in blood, their adaptations echoing in every sunburn or stubborn trait you carry. The wind drops to a murmur, like a fan on its lowest hum, carrying faint echoes of their grunts, maybe stories of hunts or lost kin. Joke 3. If Neanderthals had a yearbook, their superlative would be most likely to survive anything until the weather got weird. You lean back, the rocks steady beneath you, the sky a velvet dome, and feel their presence linger, not gone, just woven into you, their vanishing act, a silent gift that keeps giving across millennia. You brush the last traces of frost from your furs, the crystalline flakes melting into tiny droplets that glisten on your fingertips, like forgotten dew, the chill lingering just enough to remind you of those vanishing acts from the tundra's edge, Neanderthals fading into whispers, their genes tucked away in your blood like secret heirlooms. Now, as the moon hangs low, casting a silvery sheen over the snow that softens the world's edges into a hazy dreamscape, you're about to flip the script on everything you've heard about these folks, rewriting the stereotypes that painted them as stooped grunts, while embracing their true gig as parallel human successes, not some evolutionary dead end. The air carries a faint, crisp bite, mixed with the earthy musk of thawing ground, and you shuffle forward, boots sinking into the slush, with a gentle squelch that echoes like a sleepy sigh in the quiet night. You pause at a rocky overlook, the wind a soft murmur against your ears, teasing strands of hair from under your hood, as if whispering forgotten truths. For most of history, Neanderthals got the raw deal in the PR department, labeled as brutish failures when their first fossils popped up in the mid-1800s, those bulky skulls and thick limbs, screaming primitive to Victorian scientists, who probably sip tea while judging forehead real estate. You lean against a boulder, its rough surface cool and grounding under your palms, feeling the weight of those old myths like cartoons of club-dragging cavemen, with 1,000-yard stares and zero-neck game, all based on one arthritic skeleton. That'd be like judging all humans by your great-uncle's bad back day. Light-hearted joke. If Neanderthals had social media, they'd clap back with hashtag #NotAllCavemen. Some of us invented art before your ancestors stopped eating dirt. The stars twinkle overhead, a cosmic backdrop that feels like nature's own ASMR light show, pinpricks of light pulsing faintly as you dig deeper into the rewrite. Those brainy cousins from your cave explorations, they weren't ballast. They fueled a culture that buried kin with flowers and painted caves with ochre flair, predating sapiens' European doodles by thousands of years. You trace an imaginary line in the snow, the cold stinging your finger like a playful nip, recalling how we once dismissed their tools as stolen ideas. But sites like those Spanish caves with 64,000-year-old art, a canonical discovery in 2018 by a team led by Dirk Hoffman, proved they were the originals, forcing anthropology profs to rewrite textbooks mid-lecture. Historians still debate whether this art was symbolic storytelling or just prehistoric graffiti, but either way, it smashes the dumb brute label like a mammoth stepping on a twig. You shuffle down the slope, the snow yielding softly underfoot with a hushed crunch, the scent of pine resin growing stronger as if the trees themselves are leaning in to listen, Their strength and scars from those rhino wrestles? Not signs of failure, but badges of a life fully lived. Healing breaks with community care that shows compassion we once thought was our exclusive sapiens perk. You picture early reconstructions, those gorilla-like poses from the 1902nd that stuck in movies and textbooks, ignoring the upright walkers who stitched hides into fashion statements and mastered fire like pros. Odd detail. Some Neanderthal skeletons show wear from using their teeth as a third hand, gripping hides or tools in ways that'd make your dentist wince. Unusual multitasking, like chewing gum while juggling chainsaws, but for survival instead of circus tricks. The path levels out, leading to a quiet clearing where the moonlight pools like spilled silver, illuminating faint shadows that dance lazily on the ground. Embracing them as parallels means seeing the successes, thriving for 300,000 years in environments that'd freeze you solid, adapting from tundras to steppes with cognitive flexibility that rivals ours. You settle on a log, its bark rough and damp under your seat, the chill seeping up slowly like a gentle reminder to keep moving. Those human connections and genetic gifts, they're the proof we didn't outshine them. We absorbed them, carrying their immune boosts and quirky traits as living tributes. Joke number 2. Neanderthals weren't mistakes. They were beta testers for humanity. 2.0 Imagine Evolution saying, "Thanks for the feedback on cold resistance. We'll patch that in for the next update." You rub your hands together, the friction creating a soft warmth that fights the encroaching frost. The air now heavy with the subtle hum of night creatures stirring in the distance. The myth-busting hits hardest when you consider their culture burials, with pollen traces suggesting flowers, tools evolving over generations. Even those mysterious stalagmite rings, built in pitch-black caves like underground architects on a whim. Historians still debate whether these were ritual sites or just elaborate pranks on future archaeologists, but it underscores their creativity, not some failed prototype vibe. You stand, stretching your legs with a faint pop of joints, feeling the continuity. Their vanishing wasn't erasure but integration, parts of them living on in your wider nose, or that love for a good venison roast, minus the cardio chase. The wind picks up gently, rustling leaves like a fan on low, setting a soothing rhythm, carrying whispers of pine and earth that ground you in this rewrite. No more embarrassing uncle stereotypes. These were elite survivors, parallel paths where we were the late bloomers, copying their art and tools. You chuckle softly, the sound blending with the night's hush. If they had TED Talks, it'd be how to bench, press the ice age, lessons from your misunderstood cousins, with standing ovations from mammoths in the audience. Embracing this flips our ego humans, love feeling chosen. But Neanderthals remind us we're all in the same tangled tree, branches overlapping in ways that make family trees look like abstract art. You meander back toward the cave, the path familiar now, snow softening under your steps like a plush carpet unwinding. Their true role shines through, not victims of bad press, but successes who buried dead with care, innovated in darkness, and left DNA echoes that help you fend off colds or crave winter naps. Joke 3. Next time someone calls you a caveman for skipping the gym, own it. Thanks, it's my Neanderthal heritage. Blame the brow ridges for the gains. The stars fade slightly as clouds drift in, the air cooler, inviting a deeper hush that lulls your thoughts. Remember those tools and tombs? They weren't primitive. They were proofs of a thriving parallel world, one we finally honor by ditching the myths and seeing the kin. The cave looms ahead, its entrance a dark maw promising rest. The scent of lingering smoke, a comforting beacon. This busting of myths feels like justice, rewriting them as equals who navigated the same struggles with different strategies, bodies built for punishment, brains for brilliance, cultures for connection. You pause at the threshold, the chill wrapping around you like a soft blanket, and feel the shift. No more superiority tales, just shared humanity across eons, their successes woven into ours like threads in a timeless tapestry. You blink away the lingering frost from your lashes, the chill of the Neanderthal tundra still clinging to your skin like a stubborn fog. Even as the landscape around you shifts in a haze of warming air, the snow melting into muddy rivulets that gurgle softly underfoot, carrying whispers of ancient Ice Age secrets downstream. Remember those vanishing acts and myth-busting revelations about your brainy cousins? The ones who turned scars into stories and tools into legacies? Their echoes fade gently now, blending into the rising mist, as you step through a veil of time into a new world feudal Japan, where the air thickens with the scent of blooming cherry blossoms, mixed with the metallic tang of sharpened steel, and the ground beneath your boots turns from frozen crust to soft, rain-dampened earth scattered with fallen petals, like pink confetti from a forgotten festival. You're no longer dodging mammoths. Now, you're training as Tomoe Gozen, the fierceana, Musha whose blade cut through chaos like a hot knife through silk, mastering samurai skills in a land torn by war and honor, where every swing of the sword is a step toward legend. You stand in a misty dojo courtyard, the early morning fog curling around your ankles like curious cats, the air heavy with the earthy aroma of wet wood and polished armor that gleams faintly in the diffused light filtering through bamboo groves. From a young age, you're drilled in the arts of war, not as some delicate flower, but as a storm brewing riding horseback, with the wind whipping your long hair like a banner of defiance, shooting arrows from a galloping steed with precision that pins targets, like butterflies to a board. You grip the bow, feeling the smooth yew wood curve under your palms, the string taut and humming with potential, as you release an arrow that whistles through the mist, thudding into a straw dummy with a satisfying thwack that echoes off the surrounding hills. This isn't play, it's preparation, your body hardening like forged steel in a world where women are expected to weave silk, not wield katanas, but you shatter that mold with every strike. The sun peaks higher, burning off the fog in lazy wisps that rise like steam from a forgotten tea kettle, and you switch to sword practice, the katana's hilt cool and wrapped in ray skin that grips your hand like an old friend's handshake. You slash through the air, the blade singing a high-pitched whoosh that cuts the silence, your muscles aching from endless repetitions, timing, control, reading your opponent's eyes like a forbidden scroll. You're taught kyujutsu for archery, kenjutsu for blade work, all while managing a warhorse that snorts and stamps the ground, its warm, musky scent filling your nostrils as you vault into the saddle, armor clinking softly like distant wind chimes. In this era, the late Heian period, daughters of samurai are meant to be polite shadows, but your early life defies that, perhaps raised in Minamoto no Yoshinaka's household as a concubine, foster sister, or trusted retainer. The details blurred in history's ink, but your skill, crystal clear, twice as sharp as any man's, because failure isn't a soldier's slip. It's branded a woman's weakness. You pause for a breath, sweat beading on your forehead like morning dew on leaves. the air now warming with the scent of wild grasses swaying in the breeze. Training includes the naginata, that curved polearm traditionally for women warriors. Its long shaft balanced in your hands like an extension of your will, swinging in wide arcs that whoosh through the mist, cleaving imaginary foes with elegant lethality. You practice in heavy armor, the weight pressing on your shoulders like a stern teacher's hand, learning to move with grace amid the clank and creak. Your white skin and charming features, as chronicled in tales, belied by a ferocity that leaves men twice your size, staring in awe or bleeding in the dirt. Light-hearted joke. If feudal Japan had Yelp reviews for warriors, yours would read 5 stars for decapitations, fast service, no small talk, and she even looks good doing it. It's all earned through isolation, proving yourself in a man's arena where every skill must shine brighter, every strike land harder, because the battlefield doesn't grade on a curve. The courtyard buzzes faintly with the hum of cicadas awakening, their rhythmic chirps like nature's own metronome, keeping time with your footwork as you drill in Bushido codes, loyalty, honor, discipline, while young boys around you swing wooden swords with grunts and laughs. You surpass them, your style a blend of elegance and raw power, perhaps influenced by a minor samurai family in Echigo province, the exact birth date lost to time, but your rise timed perfectly with Japan's fracturing. Canonical event. The eruption of the Genpei War in 1180, a civil clash between the Taira and Minamoto clans that reshaped feudal power, pulling you into the fray as Yoshinaka's enforcer, not ornament, but equal, commanding troops, with a voice that cuts through the chaos like a well-honed edge. You sheath your katana with a soft click, the metal sliding home like a promise kept, and feel the isolation of your path. Most women don't carry swords, don't speak in strategy huddles, don't dream of battlefields soaked in blood and glory. Historians still debate whether your role was concubine turned general or something more platonic, a foster bond forged in shared hardships. But the chronicles agree, your beauty was matched only by your bow skill and swordsmanship, a revelation in a time when the samurai class was rising from the ashes of courtly games. Odd detail. Accounts describe you breaking through enemy ranks on horseback, decapitating foes mid-gallop without missing a stride, like a one-woman cavalry charge that'd make modern stunt coordinators jealous, unusual for the era, where women warriors were rare but not mythical, often wielding naginata from castle defenses rather than open fields. You wipe your brow, the salt stinging your eyes slightly, the air now alive with the scent of blooming wisteria drifting from nearby vines, sweet and heady like a perfume too strong for subtlety. This phase of your life is marked by brutal drills, horseback archery that leaves your thighs burning like forgotten embers, sword forms repeated until your arms scream for mercy, all in silence and shadow, carving your place, blade by blade. Joke number 2. Training as Tomoe feels like boot camp meets ballet graceful spins, deadly pokes, and if you complain, the sensei just says, "Suck it up, buttercup." Mammoths were tougher back in the Ice Age. It's defiance wrapped in discipline, proving that in a hierarchy of honor and hard lines, you bend the world to your will, not the other way around. The sun climbs, casting long shadows that stretch like lazy cats across the courtyard. The heat building slowly, turning the mist into a humid veil that clings to your skin. You mount your horse again, the animal's flanks warm and heaving under you, its snort puffing steam that mingles with your own breath, and gallop through drills, arrows, flying true as your heart races with the thrill of mastery. No invitation needed. Sheer will forges your path. Every sweat drop a testament to outpacing the boys. Your ferocity, a warning to a crumbling empire. Remember those Neanderthal tools shaped with patience? Yours are steel and sinew, honed in a different chaos. But the ingenuity echoes adapting, surviving, thriving against odds that'd break lesser spirits. You dismount, legs wobbling slightly from the exertion, the ground firm and welcoming as you catch your breath, the air buzzing with the faint drone of bees drawn to the blossoms. This is your rise from shadow to storm in a Japan on the brink, where loyalty to Yoshinaka binds you like an unbreakable vow, and every skill learned is a step toward battlefields that will etch your name in legend. Joke 3. If Tomoe had a training montage soundtrack, it'd be samurai beats mixed with Ice Age grunts. Because who needs motivational speeches when you've got a katana and a can-do attitude? The day wanes, shadows deepening, the courtyard emptying as fatigue sets in. But your resolve hardens like cooling steel, ready for the wars that loom like gathering clouds. You wipe the sweat from your training session off your brow, the salty tang mixing with the sweet wisteria scent that still clings to the air like a lingering perfume from a dream you can't quite shake. The dojo courtyard, now fading behind you as the path ahead twists into denser forests where the trees loom like silent sentinels, guarding secrets of steel and strategy. The ground under your boots turns uneven, roots snaking across the dirt like veins in an ancient hand, and you feel the weight of your armor settling heavier on your shoulders. The clink of metal plates, a rhythmic reminder that peace is just a fragile illusion in this fracturing Japan. By 1180, the Genpei War erupts like a long simmering pot, finally boiling over, a savage civil conflict between the Taira and Minamoto clans. That's not just about thrones, but rewriting feudal codes from the ground up, emperors manipulated like chess pieces on a board slick with blood and ambition. You ride at Yoshinaka's side, your horse's hooves thundering against the earth in a drumbeat that syncs with your pulse, the wind whipping through your long hair as you charge into the fray. No longer a trainee, but a commander whose ferocity turns battles into ballads, sung around campfires for centuries. You crest a hill overlooking the battlefield at Yokotagawara, the air thick with the acrid smoke of burning banners and the metallic bite of drawn blades. Distant shouts echoing like thunder rolling in from the sea, your senses sharpening as adrenaline floods your veins like a river bursting its banks. Yoshinaka, your lord and perhaps more historians, still debate whether your bond was forged in passion or pure loyalty, a romantic entanglement or a sibling-like alliance in the chaos. Raises his army in the northern provinces, marching south with you as his enforcer. Not some token figure, but a leader making decisions that send men into the maw of war. You lead a charge, your naginata sweeping in wide arcs that whistle through the humid air, cleaving through enemy ranks with a precision that leaves foes crumpling like paper lanterns in a storm. Their armor, no match for your unmatched swordsmanship. The chronicles claim you personally took heads as trophies, presenting them like receipts of valor, the weight of one in your hand sticky and warm, a grim proof that in this era, glory is measured in severed ties and unyielding will. The clash intensifies, arrows raining down like a monsoon of sharpened regret, their feathers fluttering past your helmet as you dodge and weave on horseback, the ground churning into mud under trampling feet, scented with churned earth and the faint coppery tang of spilled life. You command troops with a voice that cuts through the din like a katana through silk, ordering flanks to hold or advance. Your beauty white skin glowing under the sun's harsh glare, features charming even in the grit, a stark contrast to the ferocity that has you decapitating a samurai mid-gallop, his helmet tumbling away like a discarded toy. This isn't courtly poetry. It's raw, hand-to-hand savagery, swords clanging with sparks that fly like fireflies in daylight, the earth soaking up the chaos as rivers run red nearby. Light-hearted joke, if the Genpei War had a fantasy league, you'd be the MVP pick every time stats on heads taken, off the charts, and bonus points for doing it all without messing up your hair. You rally your men through a forest skirmish, the leaves rustling overhead like nervous whispers, branches snapping underfoot with sharp cracks that mimic breaking bones, the air heavy with the resinous pine scent that sticks to your armor like a stubborn memory. Yoshinaka's ambition drives you forward, his distant cousin Yoritomo eyeing him warily from afar, tensions simmering within the Minamoto clan like a pot about to boil over into betrayal. You win duels, your katana flashing in sunlight that filters through the canopy in dappled patterns, each victory a message etched in steel. You're not just fighting for land, but for a place in a world that pushes women to the edges. One famous account has you breaking through Terra lines at Yokotagawara, a canonical battle in 1183 where your charge decimated forces, heads carried back to camp as proof, the weight of them in your saddlebags, thumping rhythmically against your horse's side. An unusual detail that underscores how warriors proved kills, not with selfies, but with grisly tokens, like collecting stamps from a particularly violent post office. The day wears on, the sun dipping toward the horizon in a blaze of oranges and reds that paint the battlefield like a canvas of fiery resolve, your muscles burning from the endless gallop and swing, sweat trickling down your back under layers of armor that chafe like an ill-fitting promise. You navigate rivers, turned battlegrounds, water splashing up in cool sprays that mist your face, carrying the faint, salty tang of exertion mixed with the muddy churn below. As Yoshinaka gains ground, driving the Taira from Kyoto in a bold sweep that shakes the imperial court, you stand beside him, blood-stained but unbowed, your loyalty a shield against the whispers of envy from allies who see his recklessness as a threat. Joke number 2. Commanding in the Genpei War feels like herding cats with katanas. Everyone's got an ego sharper than their blade, but at least the scenery beats office politics. No HR meetings required. You dismount briefly amid the lulls, your horse snorting steam in the cooling air, its warm breath mingling with yours as you adjust your helmet, the strap rough against your chin, feeling the pulse of the war in every distant clash. This isn't glory for vanity. It's survival in a vacuum of order, where samurai rise and women like you carve spaces no one thought possible. Your naginata, a symbol of defiance, traditionally wielded by females defending homes. But in your hands, it's an offensive storm that redefines the front lines. The pressure mounts, betrayals brewing like storm clouds on the horizon. Yoritomo declaring Yoshinaka a traitor and dispatching generals to hunt him down, turning clan against clan in a tragic inward spiral. You fight on, each command barked with authority that silences doubts, your ferocity unmatched as you lead charges that shatter formations, the ground trembling under hooves, like an earthquake of human will. The evening shadows lengthen, the air growing cooler with the scent of damp soil and fading smoke from signal fires. Your body aching but alive, with the thrill of command, every troop movement a chess play in this grand, bloody game. Unusual fact: contemporary tales describe you not just as skilled, but supernaturally precise, like a ghost on horseback, an exaggeration perhaps born from fear, but it adds a layer of myth to your real decapitations, as if your blade had eyes of its own. You regroup with Yoshinaka's forces, the campfires flickering to life in the dusk, their warm glow casting long shadows that dance like weary warriors, the scent of roasting rice and fish wafting over, a brief respite in the storm. Joke 3. If the Genpei War was a video game, you'd be the boss level. Everyone dreads unlimited stamina, killer combos, and a respawn rate that make developers cry foul. The night settles, stars emerging like distant lanterns, the battlefield's echoes fading into a hush that promises more chaos at dawn. Your role as commander, solidifying in the forge of fire and steel, loyalty binding you tighter than any chain. You dismount in the shadow of Kyoto's smoldering gates, the acrid bite of charred wood stinging your nostrils as embers drift lazily through the air like fireflies drunk on victory. The ground under your boots, slick with rain-muddied ash that squelches softly with each step, a grim carpet woven from the threads of conquest and chaos. Yoshinaka's bold victories have propelled you here in 1183, driving the Taira from the imperial capital in a whirlwind of steel and strategy that leaves the court nobles whispering in fear, their silk robes rustling like nervous leaves in the wind. You stand blood-stained beside him, your naginata still humming from the final clashes, its blade etched with the day's toll, the metallic tang of it mixing with the faint floral remnants of cherry blossoms crushed underfoot. A poetic irony in this city of emperors turned battlefield. Power surges through you like a river in flood, but it's a double-edged blade. Your lord's ambition outpaces his alliances, plundering the city and antagonizing elites who see him not as savior, but as a wild storm they can't control. You stride through the palace grounds, the air heavy with incense from hurried rituals, its sweet, smoky veil barely masking the underlying rot of political decay, torches flickering in brackets that cast long shadows, dancing like scheming courtiers on the wooden walls. Yoshinaka seizes control of Emperor Go Shirakawa, a symbolic grab for supreme authority that seals his fate, his hands on the imperial reins, drawing Yoritomo's swift condemnation from afar, branding your lord a traitor, and unleashing Minamoto generals like Yoshitsune and Noriori to hunt you down. You feel the shift in the wind, cooler now as evening falls, carrying distant thunder that rumbles like approaching betrayal. Your loyalty, a anchor in this swirling vortex where clan turns inward, the Minamoto splintering like a cracked katana under pride's unrelenting pressure. No longer battling the Taira on paper, you face your own kin, the pressure mounting like a noose tightening slowly. Your role as commander now laced with the bitter taste of isolation, every order barked into the growing dusk, a defiance against the inevitable. You retreat from Kyoto with a handful of loyal retainers, the path winding through mist-shrouded mountains, where the air grows crisp and pine-scented, needles crunching under your horse's hooves like brittle bones, the weight of defeat pressing down despite your unbroken spirit. Yoshinaka's recklessness Once a spark that ignited triumphs, now fans flames of enmity, his inner circle shrinking like a wilting flower in frost. But you remain, your ferocity a beacon in the gathering gloom. The final stand looms at the Battle of Huchi in late 1183, but it's a wazoo in February 1184 that etches your name deeper into legend. The snow-blanketed plains quiet at first, a deceptive hush, broken only by the soft crunch of frost underfoot and the distant snort of war horses stamping impatiently. You charge into the fray one last time, your katana flashing in the pale winter light that glints off armor like scattered jewels, seeking the strongest foe amid the chaos. Oda no Hidataka, or perhaps Hatakayama Shigetada. Chronicles vary as you lock blades, unseat him with a surge of strength, and decapitate in one fluid motion, the head's weight thudding into your saddlebag like a final punctuation on your battlefield prowess. The snow falls thicker now, blanketing the field in a white shroud that muffles the cries and clashes, turning the ground into a slippery mire where your horse's hooves slide with treacherous grace, the cold biting through your armor like needles of regret. Yoshinaka's forces dwindle, arrows volleying like frozen rain that whistles past your helmet, one grazing your cheek with a sharp sting that draws a thin line of warmth trickling down your skin. Legend holds, he orders you to flee, fearing the shame of dying beside a woman would tarnish his samurai legacy, a cruel irony that twists in your gut like a poorly sheathed blade, your bravery dismissed to preserve his honor, the air heavy with unspoken farewells as snowflakes melt on your lashes, blurring the scene into a watercolor of loss. You refuse at first, surging back into the melee, your naginata whirling in arcs that clear paths through the press of bodies, the metallic ring of steel on steel echoing like a dirge. But duty binds you, and you vanish into the storm, or perhaps fight on until the records diverge. The Heike Monogatari offering conflicting tales of capture, marriage, or monastic retreat. You gallop through the flurry, the wind howling in your ears like a banshee's lament, carrying the scent of fresh snow mixed with the iron tang of blood that clings to your gloves, your heart pounding a rhythm of defiance even as Yoshinaka falls, his horse mired in a rice paddy, arrows finding their mark in a volley that ends his reckless arc. His loyal companion, Imai Kanehara, commits seppuku in dramatic fashion, sword in mouth as he leaps from his mount, the act a punctuation of honor that leaves you alone in the whiteout, the battlefield's chaos fading behind you like a nightmare dissolving at dawn. Canonical event, the Battle of Awazu in 1184, chronicled in the Heike Monogatari, marks Yoshinaka's tragic end and your legendary last charge, a turning point that solidified Yoritomo's rise and the Kamakura shogunate's foundation, reshaping Japan from imperial puppetry to warrior rule. Historians still debate whether Yoshinaka's plea for you to flee was chivalric mercy or sexist dismissal, a reflection of era norms where a woman's death in battle could shame a general more than defeat itself. The snow swirls thicker, muffling your horse's labored breaths into soft puffs that vanish in the air, the cold seeping into your bones like a lover's farewell too long delayed, your mind racing through memories of drills and duels that led to this frozen crescendo. Odd detail. Some accounts claim you cut off your warrior's hair post-battle, a symbolic shearing of your martial identity before vanishing, an unusual act for a samurai that blends mourning with reinvention, like trading a blade for a veil in one swift stroke. You press on, the plains giving way to forested slopes where branches claw at your armor like grasping hands, the path uncertain, but your spirit unbroken. Betrayals sting sharper than any wound as the Minamoto Civil War claims its toll. Lighthearted joke. Facing betrayal in the Genpei War feels like a bad family reunion. Everyone's armed, the arguments get lethal, and somehow you're the one stuck with the cleanup. No potluck peace offerings in sight. You glance back one last time. The battlefield, a blurred white haze dotted with fallen banners, fluttering like surrendered ghosts. The air now silent, save for the wind's mournful sigh, carrying flakes that settle on your shoulders like unshed tears. Joke number 2. Yoshinaka's fall is like a samurai soap opera finale, twists, tears, and a dramatic exit, but at least no cliffhanger renewals. The Shogunate reboot came with fewer episodes and more bureaucracy. The night deepens, stars peeking through the clouds like wary eyes. The cold, a blanket that numbs but doesn't break you. Your loyalty, a fire that burns low but steady in the storm's heart. You vanish into the mountains, or perhaps not, sources split on capture by enemies. Forced marriage to Wada Yoshimori with a child born in chains, or a Ronin's wanderings through borderlands, skirmishing for hire in shadows that swallow your name. Joke 3. If a wazoo was a video game boss fight, you'd be the secret character who glitches out at the end, poof, into legend, leaving players debating your DLC fate over endless replays. The snow eases, the air stilling to a hush like a held breath, your path forging ahead into myth's embrace. The tragic end at a wazoo, not a full stop, but a comma in your enduring saga. You slip deeper into the snowy haze of a wazoo's aftermath, the flakes settling on your armor like a veil of forgetfulness, the cold numbing your fingers as they clutch the reins, your horse's flanks heaving with labored breaths that puff into the night air, scented with the faint, bitter tang of gunpowder-like ash from distant signal fires that flicker like dying stars on the horizon. The battlefield's echoes fade behind you, a chaotic symphony of clashing steel and final cries dissolving into the wind's low moan, leaving only the crunch of fresh snow under hooves, and the rhythmic thump of your heart, still racing from that defiant charge where your naginata cleaved through the storm. You vanish into the mountains, or so the tales spin, your path swallowed by the swirling whiteout that blurs the line between reality and myth. Tomoe Gozen transforming from flesh and blood warrior to a legend whispered around campfires, her story reshaping like clay in the hands of poets and playwrights across centuries. You ride on through the Nagano wilds, the trees looming like silent guardians, draped in frost, their branches creaking softly in the breeze, as if murmuring secrets of your escape. The air growing thinner and pine-scented, sharp enough to clear the fog of battle from your mind. The Heike Monogatari, that sweeping 13th century epic compiled from oral tales chanted by blind Biwa Hoshi monks to the lute's haunting twang, etches you into cultural memory, not as a footnote, but a tragic heroine. Your beauty exaggerated into ethereal grace, your loyalty dramatized into tearful farewells that have audiences weeping in No and Kabuki theaters for generations. You imagine those performances, the stage lit by flickering lanterns that cast elongated shadows like your own naginata's sweep, actors in flowing kimono mimicking your charges with stylized precision, turning your real decapitations into metaphors for feminine resilience. The crowd's gasps, blending with the baiwa's strings in a rhythm that echoes your heartbeat from a wazoo. The path steepens, rocks jutting through the snow like hidden traps. their rough edges grazing your horse's legs with a faint scrape that echoes in the quiet, the scent of damp moss rising from crevices as you climb higher, away from the plains where Yoshinaka's body lies cooling under the blanket of white. Conflicting stories swirl around your fate like the snowflakes themselves. One claims capture by Yoritomo's forces. Forced into marriage with Wada Yoshimori, bearing a child in reluctant domesticity before his death, drives you to shave your head and retreat into a nun's life, the temple bells tolling softly in your imagination, their resonant hum a far cry from the clash of blades. Another tale has you wandering as a ronin, unaligned and untamed, hiring your sword for private vendettas in borderland skirmishes, the air filled with the metallic ring of clandestine duels under moonlit skies, your identity cloaked in shadows that grow longer with each retelling. You feel the pull of these narratives, your real self dissolving into ink and folklore, the silence after Owazu roaring louder than any war cry, giving artists permission to fill the void with meaning, a symbol of resistance, a ghost haunting the samurai ideal. You crest a ridge, the view opening to star-pricked valleys below, the cold wind whispering through your cropped hair, if the tales hold true like a lover's farewell, the odd detail of that symbolic shearing, marking your transition from warrior to wanderer. An unusual act for a samurai woman that blends mourning with rebirth, like discarding a bloodied blade for a beggar's bowl in one defiant stroke. Historians still debate whether your disappearance was a deliberate erasure by patriarchal scribes or a clever survival tactic. A woman too fierce for the records slipping into obscurity to rewrite her own ending, perhaps becoming a nun in Ekizan, or vanishing into mountain monasteries where the air hums with chants and incense, sweet and heady like forgotten blossoms. You pause by a frozen stream, the ice cracking faintly under your touch like brittle parchment, dipping your hands into the numbing flow to wash away the day's grime. The waters chill a balm on scars from those Genpei charges, callbacks to your training drills, where every swing honed you into the storm that shattered Tyra lines. The night deepens, the stars wheeling overhead like a cosmic biwa performance, their light filtering through clouds in soft pulses that illuminate faint trails, winding into the unknown, the air still and heavy, with the scent of impending snow that dusts your shoulders like powdered sugar on a forgotten treat. Over centuries, you endure in art and lore. Edo period painters capturing your horseback fury on scrolls that unfurl with the rustle of silk, your face calm amid the chaos, blade poised like a promise unkept. In modern manga and video games, you're resurrected as a feminist icon or avenging demon, your naginata swinging in pixelated glory, inspiring schoolgirls in history classes and cosplayers at conventions where the air buzzes with excited chatter and the flash of cameras, your name invoked in martial arts dojos where students whisper it like a mantra while practicing forms that echo your lethal grace. You imagine those echoes, the temple named after you in Nagano, standing sentinel, its wooden beams creaking in the wind, like old bones recounting tales, stamps and posters, bearing your image, a shorthand for defiance, in a world that still grapples with gender's sharp edges. You press on into the forest's embrace, branches brushing your armor with gentle scratches that sound like quills on paper scripting your myth, the ground softening underfoot with fallen leaves that crunch faintly, their decayed scent earthy and grounding in this ascent to immortality. The Heike Monogatari's chants carry you forward. Blind monks traveling town to town, their voices rising and falling with the biwa's pluck, turning your charges into moral lessons on honor and loss. Your vanishing act, a power move that makes you untouchable. No single ending, no confined role, just a symbol of what women can claim when they refuse the script. Lighthearted joke. If Tomoe's legend was a choose-your-own-adventure book, every path leads to badass eternal, with bonus points for confusing historians into endless debates, no wrong answers, just epic reruns. You chuckle softly, the sound lost in the wind's sigh, a callback to those battlefield glories where your ferocity turned tides, now immortalized in plays where actors weep for your tragic love, though your real heart beat for loyalty and the thrill of the fight. The path narrows, moonlight pooling in clearings like spilled sake, illuminating wildflowers poking through the snow with stubborn resilience, their faint perfume a whisper of spring in winter's grip. You're no longer constrained by facts. You're a revelation, haunting Japan's cultural psyche from the Kamakura era's rigid patriarchy, where women like you were sidelined yet romanticized, to the Meiji Restoration, emerging in textbooks as a patriotic heroine, her story sanitized for school plays, but still carrying the edge of your blade. In anime and films, you're the archetype of the female warrior, sword drawn against expectations, inspiring every bold leader or athlete who defies the mold. Your name a rally cry for identity and justice. Joke number 2. Tomoe's myth is like that one relative who vanishes at family gatherings, but steals the show in all the story's mysterious exit, endless gossip, and somehow cooler in hindsight than at the party. You reach a monastery gate in your mind's eye, the wood weathered and creaking open, with a low groan, incense wafting out in warm waves that clash with the cold, its spicy sweetness wrapping around you like a new vow. Whether nun, ronin, or ghost, your silence after a wazoo becomes a roar, proving legends aren't born from fitting in but from breaking free. Your eternal status, a testament to possibility in a world that tried to box you. The stars fade behind clouds, the air stilling to a hush, like a fan switched off mid-hum, lulling you into reflection as the myth takes hold. Tomoe Gozen, riding forever in tales that refuse to end. Joke 3. If immortality was a job application, you'd ace it with skills. Swordplay, vanishing acts, inspiring fan art references, every poet since 1184. The night envelops you, the forest a cocoon for your transformation, a wazoo's tragedy, birthing a legend that outshines the snow's fleeting blanket. You ease away from the monastery's shadowed gate, the incense's spicy warmth fading into the crisp mountain air that nips at your cheeks like a reluctant goodbye. The path ahead winding downward through mist-shrouded valleys, where the snow gives way to softer earth, dotted with wild grasses swaying in a breeze that carries the faint, salty tang of distant seas whispering promises of horizons unbound. The echoes of Tomoe's legend, her vanishing charge at a wazoo, blade flashing in the snowstorm like a final defiant spark, linger in your mind. A warrior's spirit dissolving into myth, much like ancient echoes of Neanderthal fires flickering out across tundras. But now the wind shifts, tugging you toward open waters, where waves lap gently against unseen shores, pulling you into the saga of oceanic pioneers, who didn't just cross seas, but stitched the world together with threads of stars, winds, and unyielding courage. You feel the ground level out, the crunch of pine needles under your boots softening into the squelch of coastal sand, gritty and cool between your toes as the air thickens with brine and the rhythmic crash of surf that rolls in like a heartbeat from the deep. Ancient mariners beckoning you aboard reed rafts and double-hulled canoes that bob on swells like invitations to chase the unknown. You step onto a swaying deck, the wood creaking softly under your weight like an old floorboard protesting a midnight snack run. The vessel's hull cutting through waves that slap against the sides with wet thuds, spraying mist that tastes of salt on your lips and stings your eyes just enough to sharpen your focus. Tens of thousands of years ago, humanity's affair with the sea begins not with grand fleets, but humble rafts. Early humans crossing vast oceans to reach Australia over 40,000 years ago, navigating by tides and celestial patterns without maps or compasses. Their journeys planned with an intuition that makes your GPS-dependent road trips feel like cheating. You grip the railing, the rough fibers biting into your palms, feeling the subtle push of currents beneath the hull, like invisible hands, guiding you forward, the sky above a vast dome, pricked with stars that wheel slowly. Polaris, in the north, a fixed beacon for orientation, while southern navigators track the Southern Cross, their knowledge passed orally through chants and stories that hum in your ears like a lullaby from the deep. The wind fills the sails with a soft billow, the fabric snapping faintly like a flag in a gentle breeze, carrying the scent of open water mixed with the faint, fishy aroma of drying nets draped over the sides, and you lean into the spray, imagining those first seafarers reading waves like open books, cloud formations over hidden islands, bird flight paths arrowing toward land, even tasting seawater for salinity, shifts that hint at nearby rivers. You chuckle quietly, the sound lost in the waves' murmur. If ancient mariners had apps, it'd be Wave Reader Pro, no signal needed, just add intuition and a dash of desperation. Their tools are memory and observation, no astrolabes or sextants, just the sun's arc by day and planets' dance by night, turning the ocean from a barrier into a highway that connects distant peoples long before empires dream of silk roads. You sail onward, the horizon a blurred line of blue on blue where sky meets sea, the boat rocking gently in a rhythm that lulls like a hammock in a summer breeze, and delve into the Minoans of Crete, flourishing from 2000 to 1450 BCE. Their palace at Knossos, adorned with frescoes of dolphins and ships that leaped from walls in vibrant blues and reds, declaring their mastery over the Aegean. You picture their vessels, sleek with square sails and rowers, sinking oars in unison, the splash and pull, creating a steady cadence that echoes across calm waters, trading olive oil and bronze to Egypt and the Levant, their ships, not warships but speedy merchants, hugging coastlines, guided by seasonal winds and visual markers, like headlands glowing in sunset hues. Canonical event: the volcanic eruption on Thera around 1450 BCE, possibly triggering tsunamis that devastated Minoan ports, a cataclysm chronicled in ash layers and myths that might echo Plato's Atlantis, reshaping their sea empire in a single, explosive breath from the earth. The sun dips lower, painting the waves in golden ripples that shimmer like molten treasure, the air cooling with a salty chill that raises goosebumps on your arms, and you turn to the Phoenicians, tireless entrepreneurs from 1500 BCE onward, their city-states, like Tyre and Sidon, launching fleets that link Egypt to Mesopotamia, cedar wood, and purple dye flowing on vessels, maneuverable enough to dart across open Mediterranean swells. You inhale the imagined scent of fresh cedar planks underfoot, the wood's resinous aroma grounding you as you navigate by Polaris. Their greatest gift, the alphabet 22 sound-based characters that inspire Greek and Latin scripts, carried on ships like floating libraries, turning trade routes into cultural bridges. Historians still debate whether Phoenician navigators reached as far as Britain for tin, their coastal features and wind patterns suggesting bold ventures beyond the Pillars of Hercules, a tantalizing what if in ancient cartography. You spot a flock of seabirds wheeling overhead, their cries sharp and piercing like alarms in the dusk, arrowing toward unseen islands, and shift to the Austronesians, originating from Taiwan, around 3000 BCE, their outrigger canoes slicing through Pacific swells with crab claw sails billowing in the trade winds, colonizing from Madagascar to Easter Island in an arc spanning 10,000 miles. You feel the canoe's double hull steady beneath you, the water's chop slapping rhythmically as you read wave patterns reflected from distant atolls, tasting salt for land's subtle signature, their lapita pottery, marking trails like breadcrumbs across the blue void. Odd detail. Austronesian navigators sometimes navigated by feeling the boat's buttocks, subtle hull vibrations from swells bouncing off islands. An unusual sixth sense, like the ocean whispering directions in Morse code through your seat. The stars emerge brighter, a glittering map unfurling above as the sea darkens to ink, waves lapping with a soothing hush that invites reflection, and you ponder the Egyptians' Red Sea voyages under Hatshepsut in the 15th century BCE, her ships laden with incense trees and gold from Punt, reliefs at Deir el-Bahari, depicting cargo vessels with curved hulls riding monsoon winds, their journeys sacred extensions of pharaonic will. Joke number 1. If ancient Egyptians had cruise reviews, Punt would get 5 stars for exotic animals, but deduct 1 for the sand in everything no all-inclusive buffets back then. You glide past Harappan docks at Lothal, their engineered floodgates channeling trade to Mesopotamia around 2600 BCE, flat-bottomed boats hugging coasts with monsoon rhythms, beads and ivory, crossing the Arabian Sea without fanfare. The boat rocks gently, the creak of timber, a lullaby in the night, and you embrace the Greeks' triremes, ramming foes in the Peloponnesian War, their oars sinking in thunderous pulls that churn foam white as milk, or Romans reverse engineering Carthaginian ships during the Punic Wars, adding Corvus boarding bridges to turn sea battles into infantry brawls, claiming the Mediterranean as Mare Nostrum. Joke number 2. Roman naval innovation, basically stealing homework and adding spikes, because why sail fair when you can bridge the gap and stab your way to victory? These pioneers connected civilizations, spreading ideas and goods on winds that still whisper their names, their legacies, in every modern port. The sea, a road they paved with courage and cunning. You lean over the side, trailing fingers in the cool water that trails phosphorescent sparks like underwater stars. The boat's wake glowing faintly in the dark, a magical trail that fades into the vastness. Joke number 3. If ancient mariners had travel blogs, it'd be day 47. Still no land, but the stars are 5-star rated pro tip. Pack extra intuition and avoid the Kraken specials. The horizon lightens with dawn's first blush, the air freshening with the promise of new shores, their unyielding spirit echoing in your veins, like the waves' eternal rhythm, connecting worlds across time's endless blue. You lean back against the canoe's hull, the wood warm from the day's sun now cooling under the stars' gentle gaze, the waves lapping softer, their rhythm slowing like a heartbeat, winding down after a long chase across endless blue expanses. The air carries a final whisper of salt and pine, mingling with the faint, earthy scent of distant lands, yet unexplored, the horizon blurring into a hazy line where sea meets sky in quiet surrender. You've journeyed through Ice Age fortresses with Neanderthals, their sturdy frames fading into genetic echoes that still pulse in your quirks and strengths, then charged across feudal battlefields with Tomoe Gozen, her blade's defiant arc dissolving into myths that inspire even now, and finally sailed with ancient mariners who turned oceans into bridges, their stars and swells guiding humanity's first global threads. Remember those thick Neanderthal bones, bench-pressing blizzards, or Tomoe's naginata sweeping through snow like a storm's sigh? They connect here, in this vast water world, where resilience meets ingenuity, every adaptation a quiet nod to survival's shared song. The boat rocks gently, the creak of timber fading into a hush, the phosphorescent wake dimming like embers in a dying fire, inviting you to let go, to drift into the night's embrace, where histories blend into dreams. These tales aren't just echoes from the past, they're threads woven into your own story, reminding you that across eons, humans have faced the unknown with grit and grace, turning punishment into poetry, chaos into legend. The stars wheel slower overhead, their light softening as clouds drift in like a blanket pulled close. The seas murmur, lulling you toward rest, the world's vastness shrinking to this moment of peace. You've survived the ice, the wars, the waves now. Let the fan's soft hum carry you away. The lights dimmed low, into a sleep where these pioneers watch over you, their courage a gentle whisper in the dark. Good night.